The Vanderbeekers of 141st Street. We will be reading chapter 15, but let's talk about 14. Let's see. Remember, they were trying to do research about the Biederman, and they decided they were going to go to the college to find out because he used to work there. Also, Oliver was giving out cookies, and that's when his friend said she would look for him in the night. And remember, Oliver gave some of his cookies to the Biederman, and the girls were really shocked that he had done that. And that's it. Okay, so now we're Monday, December 23rd, so we're getting closer to Christmas. 15. We're going for a walk, Jessie announced to her mom. Take Lainey with you, Mama called out from the kitchen. Please, she added, with a note of desperation. On every available inch of counter space and on every available inch of the kitchen floor lay Mama's baking supplies, ready for packing. Lainey was having a wonderful time examining each item and organizing the supplies for her own personal store. She had found a stack of sticky notes and priced items anywhere from 1 cent to $3,000. Papa emerged from the bathroom where he was sanding down the walls in preparation for a new coat of paint. I think you officially have every baking utensil ever invented, Papa said, looking at the clutter of the kitchen. He picked up a metal pitcher thing with needle-like tips. What's this? It's a fondant crimper. Don't let Lainey have it, Mama replied as she watched him hand it to Lainey. Ooh, fun, Lainey said, squeezing it together. Please, Isa, save my life here, Mama pleaded. Lainey, let's go for a walk, Isa suggested, plucking the fondant crimper out of Lainey's hands and handing it back to Mama. We could check out City College, Isa said in a sing-song voice as she took Lainey's coat off the coat hook and held it out to her. Yay, the castle! Lainey said, jumping to her feet. She looked at Mama. We're going to find out if princesses live there, Isa cut in. Okay, Mama said as she packed up the fondant crimper. She did not say be careful or be back in an hour or else, so the kids knew she was very distracted. The northeastern wind had joined the cold front and it felt 20 degrees colder than the day before. Whenever a gust passed, the kids turned so their backs served as shields against the wind. No one spoke. Hats were pulled low and scarves were pulled high. The smell of Castleman's bakery tempted the Vanderbeekers when they passed by, and each Vanderbeeker felt noble as they resisted the desire to take shelter in the cozy store. They crossed the street and stood before the college entrance. Imposing wrought iron gates reached skyward, and beyond the gates was the college campus. Up close, the buildings were more intimidating than they were from the brownstone roof. Instead of being like a princess's home, the buildings looked like they belonged on a craggy cliff above a raging sea during a lightning storm. The Vanderbeekers looked at each other. Finally, Isa shrugged and stepped inside the gates. Her siblings followed her down a cobblestone path toward the center of campus. Then they emerged in the enormous courtyard. They found the college almost deserted. Wow, said Oliver. Where are the people? I think the college is closed, Hyacinth said. I'm sure people are still working, Isa said in her falsely cheery voice. There must be a map somewhere. I see it. I see a map, Lainey said. She dragged Isa by the hand to an information post. Look, they have a whole department just for chemistry, Jessie said, reverently looking over Lainey's shoulder as she examined the map. That's awesome. And a music department too, Isa said. Let me see, said Oliver, crowding in. Ah, here it is, the art history department. It's in Helgas Hall. Isa looked away from the map and surveyed the campus. That one. To Lainey's disappointment, Helgas Hall wasn't the huge castle building visible from the Vanderbeekers' brownstone roof. Instead, it was like a miniature version of the more impressive castle. The kids made their way to the building, and it took the strength of both Oliver and Jessie to push the heavy wooden doors open wide enough for the rest of the kids to squeeze inside. The black iron hinges groaned. The temperature inside was only slightly warmer than outside, and the interior seemed to be made entirely of cold marble. Marble floors, marble walls, and before them, a long marble staircase. The kids wandered around, lost for 10 minutes, before they ran into a student in plaid flannel pajama bottoms and boots that looked like house slippers. "Do you know where the art history department is?" Jessie asked him. The guy pointed. "2 floors up, make a right. The office is at the end of the hall." The kids followed his directions, and sure enough, a door at the end of the second floor hallway had a piece of paper with art history written on it in fat marker. Isa peeked in. A woman with graying hair, pulled into a severe bun, sat behind a wooden desk that took up nearly the whole room. The top of the desk was completely empty except for a shadow box filled with papers in one corner of the desktop and a computer in the other. "Just put it in the box," she said in a monotone voice, not looking up from her computer. Tap, tap, tap. Isa stepped into the room. "I'm sorry to be a bother, but I just have one quick question. You're about to be late with your paper. Either turn it in now or fail the class," she replied. Tap, tap, tap. "But I'm not in a class," Isa replied. "I have a question about someone who might have worked here." Finally, the woman looked at the Vanderbeekers. "Kids are not supposed to be here," she said, her pencil-thin eyebrows rising up to her hairline. "We have a question," Isa repeated slowly. "We were wondering if you know of a Mr. Biederman. He used to work in this department." "Never heard of him," the woman replied, going back to her computer. "Where are your parents?" Tap, tap, tap. "We're doing research on our neighbor," Jessie chimed in, stepping inside the office, followed by Oliver, Hyacinth, and Lainey. "He might have worked here 6 years ago." "I told you I never heard of him, and I've worked here for 5 years. Tap, tap, tap. "Is there anyone who would have been here 6 or 7 years ago who might know?" Isa pressed. "Nope. Faculty left last week. Final papers are due right now, and in 10 seconds I'm packing these essays up and mailing them off to Professor Suarez's home. The college will be closed until January 15th. You can come back then." Tap, tap, tap. "January 15th? Jessie exclaimed. "You can't look it up on your computer right now?" The lady stopped tapping and powered down her computer. "Sorry." She did not sound one bit sorry. The Vanderbeekers watched as she slid the papers from her desk into a manila envelope. From the hallway, the Vanderbeekers heard someone yell, "Wait, wait, I have it!" The kids peeked out the door and saw a disheveled girl racing toward them, waving a paper. When the girl reached them, she grabbed hold of the door to stop her momentum. The Vanderbeekers parted to let her inside. "I have my paper!" she gasped. "Too late," the gray-haired lady replied. She pointed at the clock. It was 10:01 a.m. The girl clutched her heart. "Please, I have to pass this class or I'll lose my scholarship." "Everyone out of my office," the ruiner of hopes replied. "My winter break started 1 minute ago." The lady grabbed her jacket and purse from the coat rack, then pushed everyone out the office and into the hallway. She followed them and closed the door behind her. After she locked it, she took a last look at the dejected group of people around her. To Isa and Jessie, she said, "Come back in January after the 15th. Maybe someone can help you then." To the girl with the paper, who was now wringing her hands and crying, the gray-haired woman snapped, "Next time, don't be late." Then she yanked the essay out of the student's hand and clicked down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. "Oh, thank goodness," the frazzled student said, slumping down against the wall. The Vanderbeekers shook their heads in wonder. College was looking more and more like a place where dreams came to die. "There are no princesses here," Lainey said, tears leaking out of her eyes as she followed her siblings out of the building. "Oh, Lainey, I'm sorry. This was my terrible idea," Isa said, picking Lainey up and drying her little sister's eyes. "Do you want to go to Castleman's? I'll buy you a cookie." Lainey shook her head. Her hair tumbled into her face. "I want to go home." The Vanderbeekers began to trudge back to 141st Street, all illusions about the magic of the Castle College lost forever. They yearn for the warmth of their home, the pets awaiting their arrival, the comfort of Mama's nourishing meals, and the love of their friends and neighbors. It was a quiet walk back to 141st Street. When they arrived at their block, Jesse paused to get a signature for their petition from their neighbor Charlotte and her son Joseph. While 5-year-old Joseph carefully inscribed his name on the line, a middle-aged man in a worn overcoat swathed in a bright red scarf approached them. "Want to sign our petition?" asked Lainey, approaching him and unearthing another crumpled petition from her coat pocket. The man's eyes crinkled kindly as he looked at the 5 kids standing before him. He took the paper and unfolded it. "Hello," the man said in a deep, gravelly voice. "Tell me about your petition." The kids introduced themselves. "We're trying to convince our landlord to renew our lease," Isa explained. "Surely," he said, signing. "Mr. Austin Rochester," on an open line without bothering to read the top. "I applaud your civic-mindedness," said Mr. Rochester. A blast of Arctic wind came through, and Mr. Rochester and the kids turned their backs to it. When the wind eased, he continued, "I love seeing people get involved in their community. I always try to encourage that in my work." "Where do you work?" asked Hyacinth. "I'm a musician," said Mr. Rochester. "I play the cello, and I conduct an orchestra for teens called Rhythmic NYC. "I've heard of that," said Isa, her eyes brightening. "I'm a musician too. I play the violin." "If you're in high school, you can audition," encouraged Mr. Rochester. "I'm only 12. But in 2 years, I'm totally going to audition. It sounds amazing." Mr. Rochester reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. "Keep this, and be sure to audition the summer before your freshman year. All the information is on our website." Isa cradled the business card as if it were a priceless gift. "Do you live around here?" asked Oliver. "No, but I'm looking at an apartment in this area. It's in a brownstone." He showed Oliver the address. Am I going in the right direction? Isa, Jesse, Hyacinth, and Lainey watched Oliver read the address, then glanced up at them with panicked eyes. Actually, you need to go 3 avenue blocks that way," Oliver lied, pointing in the opposite direction. "Thank you very much. I have the worst sense of direction. My wife is always leading me everywhere. She's traveling in Egypt right now, doing research on mummies. Cool, right?" "Cool," echoed the children. "Well, I better get going. I have a rehearsal right after I see the apartment, and I'm already running late," he said, looking at his watch. "It was very nice meeting you all." Mr. Rochester shook all the kids' hands, accepting a hug from Lainey, then strode away from them and the brownstone. "Lightning might strike me down right here," said Oliver. "He was so nice," Isa said with tears in her eyes. "And we just lied to him." "It was for a good reason," Jessie said weakly. "I want him to be our neighbor," declared Lainey. "His wife knows about mummies." "He would have been perfect for the brownstone," Isa said mournfully. "He would have understood the spirit of it." A particularly brutal wind swept through the Vanderbeekers, and the Vanderbeekers didn't bother turning their backs to avoid the sting on their cheeks. It felt like a well-deserved punishment. Dun!